a 3631 Tactical. Today I want to talk about a possible safe way to carry Appendix style. I made a video called Appendix carry is stupidly dangerous, and I talked about why I think it's ridiculously dangerous. It violates one of the most basic firearm safety rules, and that's to never point the gun at yourself. You can't not point the gun at yourself if you're in the seated position and you draw the gun out. I'm not going to go through all that, but I'll put a link to that video in the description box of this video if you want to check that out. But when I made that video, somebody left a comment and they mentioned about this product here. It's called the trigger guard holster. Let me show you how it works. All right, now the way this works, I got a little training Glock 19 here. The way this works is it snaps onto your trigger guard so that you can't have any access to the trigger. As you're drawing the gun out, your finger can't get on the trigger prematurely. It snaps on your gun that way. It snaps in place pretty solid, pretty firm for what it is. But with this little lanyard here, this little string attached, the way it works is you wrap this through your belt loop or through your belt. So I'd put it through my belt, loop it like that, and then my gun would snap into place this way. So you can go ahead and do your thing. You can appendix carry, and when you go to draw the gun out, your finger really doesn't have access to the trigger until you extend it out, and then that trigger holster will, pull away from the gun. Then you can get on the trigger, and then you can get your shots off. Now the person that left the comment on my video also said you should use the clip holster. And if you're not familiar with what a clip holster is, it's a little piece that you actually attach to the gun. Just basically a little piece right here that will allow you to, when you tuck the gun in your waistband for appendix carry, there'll be a little clip that'll actually attach it to your belt. Because if you just use the trigger guard holster, you're basically just sticking a gun in your waistband and there's nothing securing it. So throughout the day, as I'm moving and twisting and turning and getting out of my car, whatever I'm doing, there's a good chance that the gun slides, shifts, gets in a bad position. Maybe it starts to slide down my pants, which would be a bad thing if I have to reach down here to get the gun out. Maybe it starts to slide the other way and come out this way. So definitely, if you're going to use this, I would use that clip, the clip holster. I kind of don't like those clip holsters. They're kind of flimsy. They're not really, I don't think they really secure the gun as good as they should. But that's something you'd have to use, I think, if you're using this type of setup here, because you just can't tuck a gun in your waistband. And I'm telling you, it's gonna move, it's gonna shift, it's not gonna be where you want it to be when you need to get it. Good chance that, again, like I said, it falls down your pants or even comes out. So in the video that I made where I said appendix carry is stupidly dangerous, my whole point was when you're in the seated position and if you drive anywhere, ride a bus, taxi, at some point in the day you're gonna sit down. And if I happen to be sitting down when I have to pull my gun out, this is what happens. I go to grab my gun from a traditional regular holster. As soon as it clears the holster, it's pointed at myself. It's pointed at my own legs, right? This is a bad thing. There's no amount of training you can do to fix that. As soon as the gun clears the holster, it's gonna be pointing at myself. That was kind of my big argument. And here is the trigger guard holster. Here's how this would work from this seated position, from the car. Again, if I got this into place and I'm doing the appendix carry thing, when I go to draw the gun out, right now I have no access to the trigger. I cannot put my finger on that trigger until I extend the gun outward. So as I'm extending it to bad guy and it pulls away from the gun, then I can put my finger on the trigger and actually start to engage. So it really kind of eliminates the ability for you to kind of shoot yourself, at least on the draw with appendix carry. But there's a few issues. Well, like I said, there are a few problems with this method, and one is if you had to do any kind of retention shooting. Imagine if I was in the seated position, I grabbed my gun, and for some reason, if the bad guy was right here at the window and I couldn't extend the gun all the way out. Could I shoot from right here? I can't, because the trigger guard. I'd have to rip that thing off. So I'd have to grab it with my other hand, rip it off, and then shoot, which would kind of take a lot of time, seems kind of to defeat the purpose. I couldn't get that extension because I have to extend it out pretty good, decent distance to get the trigger guard holster to come off to get my shots off. I know this doesn't seem like a long way, but if somebody was right here at my window and they had a knife or they had a gun, it's kind of a really bad situation to begin with. But if it was a retention type shooting situation, you can see you gotta extend that gun out at least to about here before it'll come off. And if I was in a situation where I couldn't extend it, if I had to just draw it and come here and shoot, I can't do it. One of the things that I don't like about this holster is, if you can imagine me driving my car, threat pops up on this side and I have to draw my gun and point in this direction. If I get my gun and I go to pull this way, the holster will come off, but I gotta snap it pretty hard. And this is kind of an unnatural, I guess, draw stroke. By the time I do that and then extend the gun out to bad guy, it just doesn't feel as natural as. So drawing the gun and having to snap it in this direction doesn't feel as natural to me. I don't generally practice drawing the gun that way, but if a threat pops up on this side while you're wearing this kind of holster, that's kind of what you're gonna have to do. Trying to draw the gun out and turn it this way and pull that way, that's really unnatural, and I don't think that would be a wise tactic. I think you'd be better off just drawing the gun out, snapping it out to get it off of that holster, and then engaging your threat as needed. All right, let's try it live fire. I think another downside to this, carrying this method, is if you had any kind of retention shooting. If I had a situation where somebody was right on top of me, which could happen, if they had a gun, if they had a knife, even if they were just a lot stronger than me and were just punching me really hard, if I had to draw the gun out and had to fire it from really close, like a retention type shooting, the trigger holster's on there, and I cannot get my finger on the trigger to make my shots. So I would have to extend it out. And even though this is not that far of an extension, that's a long way to go if I'm right on top of somebody and we're fighting. Some people may say, well, you could use your support side hand to pull this thing loose and then get the shots off, and that seems kind of, I don't think that's a very good tactic either, because if I am this close, if I have somebody this close to me right in front of me and it's a retention type shooting situation, I'm probably going to be using this hand to either block myself from getting punched, struck, or maybe I'm trying to wrap up somebody's hand because they have a knife or a gun and I'm trying to control that the best I can until I can get my gun out to shoot. So that would be another kind of downside of this. If you had any kind of retention shooting, it might be hard to get this trigger holster off to get your shots off in time. All right, so like I said, if you had some kind of retention shooting situation, me and this guy are fighting and I go to draw my gun out and he's got my arm and I'm trying to hold his arm because maybe he's got a gun too, or maybe he's got a knife, or maybe he's just beating the hell out of me. And I try to pull the gun out. If I can't extend it out, if he's keeping me from extending it, that trigger guard holster is not going to come off. And I don't want to take my support side hand to pull it off, because now his hand's free to punch me, stab me, shoot me, whatever. So I might have to try to control this arm and get that trigger holster off, and I might not be able to do it. So that's one of the downfalls of this, is if you're in some kind of retention shooting situation, you might not be able to get that that holster off. So those are my thoughts on the trigger guard holster. I think it adds a certain level of safety if you do want to carry Appendix style and you want to draw the gun out while you're seated. It adds a little bit of safety, but there's also some downfalls to it. So those are my thoughts. I think I paid 18 or 19 bucks for this, and I bought it specifically to do this video, so you're welcome. But yeah, it's only about 18 or 19 bucks. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you want that the clip holster. If you're not familiar with that, you can look those up, but you definitely would want that as well. So those are my thoughts. What do you think? And remember to check us out at 3631 Tactical on YouTube for many more videos. And if you're interested in a Michigan CPL class, check us out at 3631tactical.com. Thanks for watching.